So Scott, tell us about life in the PST.
So, well, I've been back on a year, as you know, almost a year now, and so it's been, I would say, quite easily the best year that I've been on. I did 3 years before, obviously before we took over the club, and all that, as everyone knows, history-wise. But I think with myself, Claire Martin, Simon Colebrook, and of course Johnny Ertel, who came on a year ago. I think what we've done is we've really added to the skills that are already on the board, and in particular with Johnny, he's really sort of ignited people's interest in the trust. Where, to be fair to the previous couple of years, maybe it had been waning, and one or two issues had cropped up, which hit the trust's sort of credibility a little bit hard, unfairly at times. But I think the trust has worked really, really hard to sort itself out, and this year, which is my first year back on for a while, I can really see the difference in the professionalism and the organisation and the way that the trust does things on a week-to-week and month-to-month basis this year. So I've really, really enjoyed it. It was exciting in the old days, with all that went on in the 3 or 4 years that we were involved. I've actually written an article for Stand Against Modern Football for their bi-monthly thing, and I was going through some of the old stuff to do with Chan Ryan, going further back to Al Fahim and all this sort of stuff, and it was just incredible, wasn't it, what happened to Pompey in that and those. And now when you look at the football club, and you'll probably agree wholeheartedly, what a completely different place it is, and what a pleasure it probably is to be at the place now.
Yeah. Tell us about some of the projects going on. Like you're particularly interested in the future generations.
Yes, I think what's important is that the trust has done enormous work and progress in getting the football, or helping to get the football club status stable. Of course, we've got the 3 fan directors on, but it's there's an awful large staff here that McLachlan and below that do the day-to-day work, and they've really sorted the football club out, and they're an absolute credit. But I think now that we've got to a point where the football club seems to be growing steadily and being more solid, and off the pitch is obviously a different story, but on the pitch is a different story, but off the pitch it's still a bit problematical, but let's hope we get promotion this year. It's a case of finding that lost generation that have over the last 10, 15, 20 years have been drifting away from football and Pompey in general.
It's been a bit like the Pied Piper came along and took them all off somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's something along those lines. It's more sort of a case where football in general seems, since the late 90s, seems to have lost its way in terms of rising prices and some of the way that going to football matches home and away has been policed, and it's gone through a really difficult period. It's not just at Pompey, it's at clubs up and down the country that they're trying to attract kids, and of course there's with the growth of social media and things like that, there's more information available, but that means there's more things for people to be interested in. When I was 9, 10, 11, all I did was went down to Milton Park and played football, or came here on a Saturday. That's all I really did. There's 100 different things that kids these days can get involved in. So that's where football has a real problem with being attractive, and putting together something like the Next Generations, which you've done at the Trust, is basically going to the young people and saying, right, okay, what do you want? What will get you and your friends to come to Fratton Park regularly?
And do they give you the answers?
They have sometimes, yeah. And obviously we've got up the top of the North Stand now, we've got the club have introduced the new youth category, where cheaper tickets are available for a certain number of people. So there's initiatives like that. There's also a couple of other initiatives that I'm working on with the Next Generation. They're looking at links with the university to try and help the club build better partnerships with the university and maybe attract more university students throughout their stay in Portsmouth, and try and get the hooks under the skin of them to become Pompey fans for the future, because as you experienced, John, people who come to this city, however they come to this city, they get affected by it, don't they? And they fall in love with the place, and they inevitably have some kind of tie to it. And hopefully, a lot of those people will have a tie to the football club, and they'll be the young supporters of the future, and maybe stay around and buy season tickets and come to the games and help the club grow as it goes up the divisions.
Well, the Trust have already been influential, because once the young generation are no longer the young generation, there's another generation waiting to come up, which will be in the family section, hopefully.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we're not going to be around forever, are we, John? So, there's.
Well, you speak for yourself.
Well, of course, your longevity is legendary, but it's a case of. There is inevitably a gap between the age of 20 and 40 where people of that age don't seem to, or in the past don't seem to have been coming to football, and that's if you get them up to 20 now, get them interested. I mean, we see a lot of kids here on a Saturday, which is great. The Junior Blues has just been reintroduced, which is a fantastic move by the club and pumping the community and the trust. So those kind of things help. What I've been trying to work on is slightly older age range of sort of 17 to 25-year-olds who are the disaffected group, really. They're the ones with cash in their pockets from either going to college, university, or apprenticeships or jobs, and they're the ones we want to try and get involved, because they'll be the 30, 40, 50 somethings in the future, and they're the ones that we need to keep involved in Portsmouth Football Club one way or another.
With all these great things going on, and probably a lot of people won't understand them or have even heard about them, which makes this quite good. It's important that we don't suddenly become blasé and say, well, we've done it.
No, it's an evolving process, and that's something I'm very interested on impressing on the trust in my first year, and I've got 2 more years to go before I'm up for re-election. Hopefully I'll be re-elected then. But one thing I'm keen on doing is keeping the trust relevant. We've always been very careful that there are established, well established 40, 50, 60-year-old supporters clubs out there, and they're very important. And we've never wanted to try and impinge or move in on their patch or anything like that. That's always been a real desire of us not to do that. So we're not trying to become another supporters club, but we have to attract members. We have to keep people involved in the trust in order for us to assist the football club. The more members we have, and the more initiatives we're able to be able to do with young and old alike, the better that the football club will be, because more and more people are interested in it. So one thing that I'm very keen on is introducing things that keep the trust relevant and keep the membership going up and up and up. More money comes into the trust, and we're able to do more and more things. We're able to support more charities, more local initiatives. We're able to support the club more. So one of the things that we've done recently is the partnership with Brylan's just across the road, Frogmore Road, to initially supply us a small range of merchandise, which we can, it's PSD branded. It's not Pompey branded. Obviously, some Deco do that, but it's just something that we're trying to make the trust more relative, and it was decided before it was launched that we would put all of the money that comes to the trust into the academy. So that's something that we're bringing into the public domain, which doesn't necessarily benefit the trust coffers, because we're just handing it straight over to the football club and saying, right, there you go, that's hopefully a regular income stream for the academy, like the news does with the Sports Mail, and let's hope that doesn't go. And we can bring several £100, maybe a few £1,000 a year, put it towards the academy and help fund the football club. So that's for me what the trust can do, as well as with the 3 club directors support the football club on the playing and business side. But from the point of view of the trust, it's trying to come up with more and more ideas that will keep that revenue stream coming through.
I suppose the immediate dilemma was, once the football club's saved, a lot of people will say, well, job done, and it's never done.
Yeah, and that's the problem with other trusts have had. Trusts like Exeter and Brentford and various other places that have been involved in their football clubs. They have had different problems, but essentially it boils down to, as you've just said, you get over that massive hump. and you take a big sigh of relief, and then you possibly sit on your laurels, and 5 years goes past and you haven't really done anything, and membership of the trust is dropping off, the gates of the club are dropping off, and you just think, oh well, what happened there? How did we get that? So that's why, like I said before, it's really important that the club, with its initiatives like the Young Blues, and the trust with its initiatives, keep things ticking along and keep people interested in fan ownership, because that's what saved this football club. And I firmly believe that it should be fan owned for as long as I'm around, and as long as everybody else is around. There are massive questions over how the clubs can survive at the higher levels, but with the will that's in this city to do things, I think there's nothing that we can't achieve. If we have to redevelop Fratton Park, for example, over a 5 to 10 year period, I'm sure we can do that, to become competitive in the Championship and eventually the Premier League when we get there. I don't think there's any limit to what we can achieve as a fan-owned club. If you take what we've done over the last 5 years, I really don't think there's any limit. And you can say, oh, we'll never get 20-30 million pounds. Well, I think we could do one way or another. There's loads of different ways of doing it, of making this club successful. And the people that have been involved around the trust and around the club and around the city that have got involved. Eric Colburn's a great one for saying that we're the greatest fans in the world, and I agree with that, because I don't think any other club or city could have done what we've done. And so I think it's very important that we hold that light up and that banner and say, yes, we think we're special, and we think that it's not necessarily a one-off, but the way we did it was very unique. But clubs up and down the country can look at their clubs that are in trouble for various reasons, whether it be ownership, financial, or various other reasons, and just say, well, we can do what Pompey did. We can pick our club up by the scruff of the neck and sort it out as well.
Conundrum probably is, if you go into League One, then go into the Championship, then you've got to look at the model.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's already being looked at. I think it's well documented that if we get promotion this year, then we have the business model to more than compete in the League One again, because the differences aren't too much. Obviously, when you go up to the Championship, that's a completely different kettle of fish again, because look at Yeovil, for example. When they went up 3 or 4 years ago, I think they had pretty much one of the lowest budgets in League One. They were less. Their wage bill was less than $1 million, and the following season they were trying to compete with clubs like QPR, who'd come out of the Premiership, who that season under our friend Mr. Redknapp had spent $67 million on their wage budget. And so that's just astonishing, the difference between 24th in Championship and possibly first in Championship, and with the increased money that's coming out of the Premier League now, that's only going to get more and more challenging. But like I say, it's if you've got a club like us who can put 19,000 people through these turnstiles and more, if we get things redeveloped a bit, then with that kind of pool revenue and just the kudos of coming to play at this football club, it doesn't. Some players, still don't, still have the opportunity to decide whether they want to be here at a big club like here, or whether they want to go somewhere else and earn 2 or 3 times as much as money and disappear off into and never achieve anything. So I always believe, and I think probably others do as well, that if you hang Portsmouth Football Club in front of a player, they're going to think twice about going somewhere else, as long as the opportunity's there for them to earn a decent wage. So obviously we can't compete with some of the ex-Premiership clubs that come out, but I think if we went up to the Championship in 3 or 4 years' time, then I don't think we would be like Yeovil and only win 8 games and come straight back down again. I think we would definitely give it a good go, and we'd be looking to survive. The same as we went up in that Premiership first year in 2003. We were just looking at our 17th place. That's all we were looking at. And some clubs in the Premiership just do that every year. They just say, right, we're going to get to 40 points. Tony Pulis says that all the time, doesn't he? At West Brom, or where he was at Stoke before. Let's get to 40 points, and then we've had a successful season. Then we can push on and see what we got. It's not really a life for me, to be honest, really, is it? But I think if we get into the Championship, then I think this football club has a chance of stabilising and surviving, and then, you know, who knows, we could have a miracle season like we did in 2002, 2003, and find ourselves at the top table again.
I suppose what you say about Tony Pulis and the like, it's the reality of the Premier League. Would you ever want to go back to those days?
I think I've asked myself this question about 20 times, and I can never come up with the same. I always say yes, or say no, or say yes, or say no, for various different reasons. I think from the point of view of, it was a different time in the early 2000s. I think, you know, the atmosphere at some of those games in the first couple of years of the Premiership was unbelievable. You know, getting Man United down here and beating them, you know. Even though Arsenal beat us 5-1 in the Cup, you know, we just raised the roof, and everybody was watching on television going, they're just getting louder every time Arsenal score. They couldn't believe it. And then, of course, the AC Milan game. You know, there were some really special nights and days at Fratton Park. So for that reason, yes, I'd want to get back up to that level, because you see some special players, and if you're competing, you're not getting beaten 4 or 5-0 every week, then that's, you know, you feel really proud of that. You know, put aside all of the money issues to do with the Premiership, competing at the top level is something that every supporter should aspire to for their fans. Yes, we got into trouble because of it, not through any fault of you or I or anyone else who loves this football club, but, you know, as is well documented, lots of other people who didn't really care about the football club. But I think if we did it again this time, we'd do it on our terms. And if it didn't work out, if we couldn't compete, we come back down, then at least we say we gave it a go and did it in our way. You know what I mean?
And that's the point, isn't it? Because we now have moral guardians of the football club in the trust. So a sale like that supposedly couldn't go through.
Well, I can never say never. I mean, I think speaking for most of the shareholders that I know, it would take something very, very extraordinary at the moment for the trust to sell its shares in the football club, and our line is always that we will never sell, because there's no financial reason for us to sell. No. You know, I think what we'd only try and do is put more money into the football club. I think that's possibly how it will pan out over the next few years. Is that there will be opportunities, hopefully, where local people, like in the presidents, you know, fans, local businesses, the council, whatever, that more money can be put into this football club to bring it up to, you know, a better quality. And in that case, if you're rebuilding from within, then there's no reason to go out and seek that benefactors or sugar daddies money, because you're growing it yourself. You know what I mean? So you could never say never, but I think what's important from the trust side is that we have this almost 50% ownership, and we would want to try and keep it at that level as much as possible. It's not crucial, because the shareholders' agreement says that, you know, we can go down to 25%, and anything less than that, there has to be a vote and all the rest of it. It's all very complicated and legal, and I don't understand it totally, but I think from the point of view of the trust, and this will probably come out in the AGM, is that we're looking to put in measures whereby the crucial decisions on the football club's future, whether it be moving from Fratton Park, changing the club colours, the crest, you know, all those sort of defining things for Pompey, are up from when the trust's part of the decision has to be made. It's made by the members and it's made by the shareholders, and that's the most important thing for me, is that all of these people who invested their time and money into what we're trying to do at the football club, if these crucial questions come up and someone comes out like they did at Swansea and says, you know, I want to take it over, or West Brom or whatever, you know, some Chinese billionaire comes over and says, I want to turn Pompey into Pompey Dragons or something, you know, obviously we'd tell him to do one, but, you know, if the decision came down to it where he or she wanted to keep fan ownership but just inject money into a infrastructure project, for example, but just wanted to leave the running of the club as it was, then you'd have to have a good serious think about it. You'd never say never, but I can't see a situation in the very near future where that would happen.
One would suppose we had so many of them over a short period of time that you would smell and see an Al Fayed or an Al Fahim before we got anywhere near.
Lifetimes in 3 years, didn't we? We had a lifetimes. Well, yeah, but they kept on coming, didn't they? And even some of the local, you know, ne'er-do-wells who had a few quid in their back pocket trying. Was that 21-year-old kid who tried to get involved? I don't know. It was all very ridiculous. But yeah, we've had enough fake shakes to last a lifetime, really, haven't we?
So, short term, what is the aim for the trust short term?
Well, we've got the election on at the moment, so we've got Ashley Brown and John Kimball who are up for election from the board at the moment. That ends in a few days' time, voting. So that will resolve itself. We've also got a third position up for grabs. So there's 3 other people up for election. So we've got 5 candidates for 3 places. So those 3 places will be filled in 2 or 3 weeks' time, and then we'll be looking to have our AGM in September. And like I said, we'll probably have some definitive news on how we're going to tackle some of the questions that you've asked me about. What happens to do with, how does the trust decide what it does when the big questions arise, which basically gets rid of any of the mystery about it. There'll be set rules and there'll be set guidance, so that if this happens, then we activate that and that sort of thing. And then that's put to one side. Those questions hopefully won't be there, and they can be shelved for quite a number of years before anything needs to be done, and we can get on with doing the more exciting stuff, which is the next generations, the clothing line, getting our shareholders enthused with meeting the squad like we did the other Sunday, which is a fantastic afternoon. So Paul Cook and his players were fantastic for that. So yeah, it's the logistical and those questions to do with how the trust runs itself. Hopefully we're over some of the final hurdles now, and we can just concentrate on assisting Portsmouth Football Club as much as we can, and helping it up the leagues and helping it make itself a better place. You just look around the place now, it's just unrecognisable from what it was 3 years ago. It just looks amazing. I quite like the bleached blue seats now, and the odd new blue one. But for you, it must be an absolute pleasure to work in.
Oh, lovely, and it retains its character, all of it, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think the message from the trust is that we've had a good year. That's not boasting. We have had a good year, and we're looking forward to the new people coming on the board and seeing what ideas they've got. And I'm looking forward to working with whoever gets on, and we'll have another year of helping to put the trust into more relevance, and also trying to attract more young people, and help this club improve itself.
Well, credit where credit's due, and long may it continue.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, mate.